Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for this exclusive keynote for the HeyMama community. I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm a CNN television journalist turned podcast host of That's Total Mom Sense, and my show aims to give credit where it's often overlooked, the impact of good parenting and the life lessons that we take with us. Now, we watched her grow before our eyes as the first daughter of the nation from the tender age of 12. Now, our distinguished guest today, Chelsea Clinton, is a respected thought leader, author, global public health advocate, philanthropist, and devoted mother of three. She has published several books. I have a few with me here. Don't Let Them Disappear, 12 Endangered Species Around the Globe. This is her She Persisted series. I have a few more. Start Now, You Can Make a Difference. And it's your world to get informed, to get inspired, and get going. And Chelsea has her latest with her. It's Welcome to the Big Kids Club, What Every Older Sibling Needs to Know. There it is. Along with her mom, Hillary, she co-authored the book of Gutsy Women, Favorite Stories of Courage and Resilience, and Grandma's Gardens. Chelsea lives in New York with her husband, Marc, and their 3 kids and their dog, Soren. Chelsea, it is an honor to have you with us today.
Oh, well, thank you, Kanika. I am so humbled and embarrassed that you showed so many of my books. Thank you for that. And I am particularly proud of Welcome to the Big Kids Club, my newest book, because it is very much a reflection of the questions that Charlotte and Aiden, my first 2 kids, asked when I was pregnant with Jasper, and then after Jasper was born, and they just wanted to know everything they could about the new baby and how they could help and what they should be mindful of. And as an only child, I think that I found those questions just not only kind of moving and inspiring, but just so like deep into my heart resonant because of just the love that they already had for their baby brother before he was even, actually here with our family. And so whenever things rattle around in my head and heart for long enough, I generally decide if they haven't left, they need to emerge like into a book. And I'm so thankful I was able to do that with Welcome to the Big Kids Club.
Oh, it's wonderful. We love you for it. And as do our kids. They love reading your books. I know we all have a special place in our heart for you, Chelsea. So I want everyone in the chat to maybe share a memory or an anecdote or something that inspires you about Chelsea in the chat so she can read it and feel all the love.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Well, it's my mom's 75th birthday today.
Oh my goodness. Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. And so we'll see her later. And it's just particularly nice to be with the HeyMama community today because I've been thinking a lot about my own mom.
Yes, we're celebrating moms today, and you're incredible, Mama. Oh my goodness, what a milestone. Well, throughout the summit, we've been focusing on several touch points for mothers in business and leadership. And I'll share a Forbes article that I came across that gave some very salient points as to why parents make good leaders. And I'll go through a few of them with you now. They have agility, communication skills, coaching skills, the ability to set clear expectations, the ability to empower others, and core values that matter in their home and at work. And so I'd love to rewind to when you were a child. You were incredibly self-driven and agile. And this was a testament to your parents who gave you that autonomy and agency at a young age. But how did you develop that sense of accountability where you were like, I know there's a state dinner going on, but I have school tomorrow and I'm going to get my homework done?
Well, Kanika, I thank you for giving me some of the credit, which, I recognize I do deserve. I do think that so much of the credit really does go to my parents who, always made it clear that, when I was a kid, like my job basically was to go to school. Like, they went to work when I was little, like at the State House for my dad as governor of Arkansas, and for my mom at the Rose Law Firm. And I went to school, and then we would, all come back. We had family dinner every night that my parents weren't traveling, even if they had to go back to work. We always had family dinner. It was just like just sacred time for our family to come together and share what had happened in our days, share kind of what we had learned. And I think that those conversations and listening to my parents talk about kind of the cumulative work they were doing, on a certain issue that they really cared about, or for my mom working on a certain case that she was stewarding, really helped role model for me kind of the stick-to-itness, as we say in our family, like the importance of persistence and perseverance, and also the self-accounting of being candid about like what is going well and what we should learn from that, and what isn't going as well and what we should learn from that. And when, to your point, like we really do need to be agile and adaptive to be able to persist more efficiently and effectively. And so, when I was in high school, or like the late middle school and then in high school when we lived in Washington, I think because of my experience as a kid in Arkansas, it just never occurred to me that I could go like eavesdrop on a entertainment at a state dinner, or kind of listen to speeches in an important function that might be happening at night if I hadn't gotten my homework done. So arguably it was like an extra incentive to get my homework done, I guess, but it never occurred to me that I could kind of enjoy kind of something, even very historic, without first ensuring that my, history homework or trigonometry homework or Spanish homework or kind of whatever I had to do for kind of my job as a student, had been completed.
Yes, yes. And is this something that you're empowering Charlotte to do too?
Oh, absolutely. My daughter is our oldest. She's in second grade. And then our second is in first grade. And then our little one is in preschool. He's 3.
Right.
And absolutely, we talk about the importance of getting our homework done. Also the importance of writing thank you notes, because I really had just drilled into me, particularly by my grandmothers, kind of the discipline of gratitude, the importance of saying thank you. So, until my kids could write, like I wrote their thank you notes for them, but now they have to write their own thank you notes. And just like all the things that we have to do to be, whether good students or kind of work on the muscles of being a kind of a good person, a good citizen, kind of in our peer group and more broadly. I think it is important that we role model that and also support our kids so that they then do have kind of the agency to thrive, hopefully, well after they will have left school.
Exactly. Now, do you remember when you first started working, drafting your first resume, and what were some of the skills that you highlighted then? And maybe what do you feel has evolved over time and are your, skills now?
Well, I have to be honest, my first job was babysitting with my best childhood friend who I've known my whole life. Her mother and my mother met in Lamaze class. She is 6 weeks older than I am, and we truly have been friends forever.
Oh my
And
God,
so
that's so sweet.
I have to be honest that my first job, which was babysitting, with her name is Elizabeth, was just about proximity, because all of our client base were her neighbors. So I can't claim like anything but kind of proximity and willingness, and the fact that we loved like doing projects with younger kids in the neighborhood. I think those were really our only kind of assets that kind of set us up for success. I do, though, have enormous gratitude for the people at Stanford initially when I was kind of at career services and trying to figure out, was I going to go to grad school or was I going to apply for jobs? And then I wound up going to grad school. And then the people at Oxford who really did help me kind of think about my resume, and who thankfully, and I think this was probably not as common, goodness, like almost 2 decades ago than it would be today, were so encouraging of me, of course, putting down like my academic experience. And I had various like teaching assistant positions and research assistant, and then kind of, more prominent research kind of positions, putting all of that in there, but also including like the summer that I was a cowgirl in Montana, and like talking about the fact that I like knew how to like ride a horse and build a fence and kind of, was that that sense of like you should bring your full self like to these opportunities, and you should talk about all of the professional experiences, kind of student experiences you've had that you think kind of have you have helped you build your problem solving abilities, your abilities to work with and kind of lead in team environments, kind of your resilience, your kind of show upness, kind of your
Mhm.
adaptability. And I'm so thankful, Kanika, for that posture and that advice, because I don't think all of my friends at that time were hearing the same counsel. And I
Right.
think that counsel not only helped me like build my resume, but also just gave me more confidence than when I was interviewing, for all the things that I interviewed for after my experience at Oxford.
Wow. That's so relevant to adults in the workforce and kids alike, really embracing who you truly are and showing up as your authentic self.
And with all parts of yourself, right? And like
Exactly.
all parts of yourself being kind of valued by yourself so that hopefully others will value them too.
Others will too. Exactly. And tell us about some key learnings you had maybe on a job that you still apply to this day. And this could be from a mentor or a boss or maybe through a team project that you gleaned from.
I think, Kanika, about the experiences that I had working for people. When I was at Stanford working, for professors as a research assistant or as a TA, and then when I was a consultant working kind of for the more senior people on the team, and then kind of everything since. And I do think I've been really fortunate to have had, generally, I mean, not, every one of them, I would say, but generally the overwhelming majority of just really wonderful bosses. They may not all have become mentors, but I learned something from the ways they kind of articulated kind of what our purpose was, kind of defined success, like architected kind of the accounting of how we would kind of move toward that success so that that accounting could then become accountability. The real kind of mix of confidence and humility, the confidence to be able to kind of define a goal and define success and kind of lead toward that. And also the humility that, we don't know all things about anything. And certainly, none of us have a crystal ball. And I learned and continue to learn from people I have worked with really throughout my career. And I always want to be learning. I never want to feel anything but the curiosity and the kind of humility and the gratitude for the opportunity to learn kind of from and alongside, different people who lead and inspire and kind of motivate and kind of have kind of self and team kind of accounting and accountability. I think we all still have so much to learn. I, though, am really grateful for the people that I've had the chance to learn from, really for like well north of 20 years since I was a student, and then in every professional instance of life.
Yes, yes, absolutely. What is some of the best leadership advice that you've been given?
Oh, goodness. To listen to both what is being said and unsaid,
Mm,
to find the balance between comfort and discomfort, to always be thinking of like who you can add to your team, to be willing to kind of adapt as soon as you think it might be necessary, because once you know it's necessary, it's probably already too late. Um, like just so many good nuggets that, may sound like they belong more on a Hallmark card, but actually I have
right.
found like to be real adages in action. And, I think also particularly to be honest about the challenges that face women, that face working moms in every aspect of professional life, also in every aspect of of student life when moms kind of go back to or continue in kind of educational pursuits. And to be honest about those, and to always be thinking, what more can I do to be supportive, and not just kind of emotional solidarity, as important as that is, so inclusive of that, and also kind of what more can I be doing to create more opportunities for women, to set more women up kind of for success and to ultimately thrive, so that they then in turn can kind of further expand the aperture of kind of what we know is possible for women, and the women who then are able to seize those possibilities.
Yes, this is a great segue. I wanted to talk about the pay gap and the realities between childless people and moms, particularly single moms. Reshma Sojani has advocated so eloquently wage penalty. We're living through a war on moms. 75% of moms would go broke after 8 weeks of unpaid maternity leave, and yet the U.S. Remains the only high-income country in the world that has no form of federal paid parental leave policy. So, what is your opinion on what the resolution would be, and how we can further advocate for the rights of moms and parents in our workforce?
Well, Kanika, I've had a ringside seat to my parents. Really, I do want to give my father credit here, to my parents fighting for paid leave, for as long as I can remember. When my father signed the kind of Medical and Disability Leave Act, which was, kind of at the beginning of his presidency, I remember it being both this enormous sense of achievement, and also so enormously incomplete. Sort of how I kind of experienced my parents' sort of emotion around it, that they were so proud there now were these federal protections that would prevent someone from being fired for would prevent them from losing their job if they did have to take time off to care for an aging relative, or if they took time off after the birth of a new child. And yet there still wasn't the paid dimension. And so I certainly don't have to be persuaded of the importance of paid parental, and actually I think importantly, more inclusively, paid family and medical leave.
Yes.
And yet we know that the moral argument has been insufficiently persuasive. If it had been sufficiently persuasive, we wouldn't kind of be living in the ignominy of being the only high-income country without paid parental leave, as you mentioned, but we're also one of the only countries in the world across any income tranche that doesn't have compensated parental leave. And so I do think we have to, when you ask what's the resolution, we know what the legal architecture should look like. We know kind of what the policy architecture should look like. And we know in our federal system kind of what would make it more robust than having only kind of a federal platform would be to have complementary kind of state platform, so that there would be kind of the interlocking kind of national and state architecture to really support kind of government, and private sector employees in large enterprises, as well as kind of small and medium-sized businesses, to be able to spend that time with their new children, whether children kind of born of their own bodies, or kind of their partner's bodies, or adopted, or kind of children kind of through the foster care system. All of the different ways in which kind of we make families as human beings, being able to really recognize that kind of with the dignity and the investment of paid parental leave. But the ethical and the moral arguments about how important it is for families to have that time together, the public health arguments about the kind of long-term effects of what we see in setting children up to thrive, the public health arguments about a mother, or any parents, long-term mental health and well-being, none of that has been persuasive. So I do think we have to start thinking about how we kind of articulate and just then continue to articulate the economic arguments, because we know that when women aren't able to come to work because of whether a new child or a sick child, that costs billions and billions of dollars to companies' bottom lines. We know that when that happens over time, women more likely than male partners, are the ones to leave the workforce. That also has significant economic costs in retention, as well as in kind of then the need to recruit and retain kind of the next person to fill that role. And so I do think, while I wish that the ethical arguments were persuasive, and I wish kind of the public health arguments were persuasive, they just haven't been. And so I think we do have to look at the economic arguments in the hope that that will help us build kind of the bigger tent that we need to have then the coalition to argue for, and finally then achieve the legislation and the complementary kind of rules and regulations that we need at every level of government to finally have paid leave in this country.
Exactly. And the power really lies in the hands of the voters. There's no denying that. Yes. So we are a collective of C-suite executives and entrepreneurs at HeyMama, and are doing the work to shatter that glass ceiling. Is there anything that you think that we as women could improve upon as we do business?
Well, Kanika, there are as many answers to that question, I'm sure, as there are like members of the HeyMama community. And I would certainly never tell anyone else how to run their business. I though do think, in some ways, it's the painfully apt segue from your previous comment about all of us as voters. Just like we're, always moms, whether we're at work or in a voting booth, we're also always like executives or entrepreneurs, not just when we're at work, also when we're at home. I'm sure like all of you, as I do, have like many lists that are meticulously well organized and color-coded and complementary to one another and all equally important. We're also the business people and entrepreneurs and leaders, like when we do go into the voting booth. And we are at a really existential time right now in our country for our democracy, for voting rights, for human rights. And so I think the evidence is quite abundantly clear that in general, for most people, although certainly for women leaders, we are all better off when we live in a functioning democracy. And so it is, again, like good for our economy, as well as I think good kind of for our country to continue to live in a democracy. And there are people, many, many people right now who are up for election or re-election in November, in less than 2 weeks, who do not want us to live in a functional democracy. And also, of course, there's a pretty overlapping, not complete, but a pretty overlapping circle with the people who do not want women to have what I think of as kind of full human rights, including autonomy and agency over whether or not we have children, whether or not we do start or grow our families. So I think that what anyone should do in their own business, whether kind of at the beginning of a business journey or kind of, at a later stage, is of course up to kind of each and every one of you. But I just would hope that you would think it isn't your business to vote, because I do think it is, of course, your business, but it also is part of your business to vote, particularly in this election.
Yes, absolutely. When we think of female leaders, all of us are global citizens. We can't deny the women of Iran and what they're bravely fighting right now after Masa Amini's murder, and they're taking to the streets, and our hearts really bleed for them. They want very basic rights. In Farsi, it's Zan, Zendagi, Azadi, which is woman, life, freedom. And so, what is your take on that? And, how can we help them being part of this bigger global community of women and mothers?
Well, Kanika, certainly I would say what we can do here in the United States is continuing to ensure that we are paying attention and we're not looking away. I wouldn't say, to someone, you know, except my own children, who I do admittedly tell them what they have to do. I wouldn't say though to anyone, particularly any woman, like what she should or shouldn't do or advocate for. I though do think that the enormous bravery and courage of the women in Iran and the kind of relentless bravery and courage of which we only know a small fragment because it is so hard to get news out of
Right.
Iran. So I think we have to be mindful that what we are seeing is only a small sliver of just the enormous courage and bravery. I think then we do owe it to the women of Iran with their enormous courage and bravery. And not only the women, but the girls of Iran, the girls who are kind of continuing to show up at their schools, in their communities, on the streets to demand kind of the kind of equal and unimpeachable kind of right to self-determination, to freedom, inclusive of kind of where to go to school and what to study, to not look away, to pay attention, to ensure that our leaders are paying attention, not only here, in the United States, but for anyone who might be joining from around the world. And so I think if you ask what we can do outside of Iran, I think it is to continue to pay attention and to pressure our leaders to do what they can. And there are different answers for different people. If you are sitting in Europe, it's often probably a different answer, bluntly, than if you're sitting here. If you're sitting in China, it's a very different answer than if you're sitting here. For how to pressure our leaders to be supportive of what the women in Iran and the girls in Iran are understandably demanding.
Yes. I want to shift gears now to motherhood, and real talk. Motherhood is exhausting, and I feel for you. I have 3 myself, twins plus 1. You know that, and it's extremely challenging, siloed, just draining. But we have to keep reminding ourselves that we're doing a great job. And oftentimes it's when we're folding that load of laundry or loading that dishwasher, amidst all the other things that the goals that we have in our life and in every single day. And you're raising your 3 kids, and each of them have different needs. So how are you navigating that? And what do you find to be most challenging as a parent for you? And what are you doing to kind of overcome that?
Oh, goodness, Kanika, I feel like there are so many questions kind of embedded in that. I am incredibly thankful and mindful that all 3 of my kids are healthy. I'm very grateful for their health, very grateful that they are very much their own people. And I hope at least like that they feel supported kind of in being their own person. That being said, my boys do revere their big sister, and every once in a while they'll say they like something, and I'm like, do you really like that, or do you just like that because Charlotte likes that? So I do. When you ask about what's challenging, I am just deeply cognizant of how much not only we have kind of the privilege of circumstance of building on your last question, that we live in the United States with all of our challenges, that we are really lucky to live in New York City, which I love. I love everything about New York, except I'm very grateful that our mayor is going to tackle our rat infestation, because I saw was maybe a large mouse, but was probably a small rat on the subway this morning.
Yeah.
So, it is though, but I say that because we are lucky to live in a place that has wonderful parks and playgrounds and a great public transport system, even with maybe our unwanted 4-legged friends on it, that our kids ride the subway and the bus and love living in this incredible and incredibly vibrant place that is New York City. And so I am mindful that we have kind of the privilege of place and space and financial protection. And then I'm also deeply mindful of the blessings we have of health. And my husband's one of 11, and our children have so many amazing cousins, as well as wonderful relationships with my parents and my husband's mom. And so we are really, I hope not belaboring to our kids, but reminding them that it is important that they are aware of their privileges and their blessings. And we talk a lot about their great grandmothers, because both of my grandmothers are really important in my life. And so really mindful of, what can they be doing even now to try to expand the kind of circle of blessings for others. Kind of what can they be doing as, I know, small citizens, but even though they are small, it doesn't invalidate that they are already citizens of their communities at school, at church and synagogue, kind of their friend groups. And so that is kind of where we really spend a lot of our time and energy, is trying to help them kind of think about kind of what they want to do to be kind of affirmative and good, and kind of exemplifying, I hope, the discipline of gratitude and expanding the circle of blessings, and kind of building the muscles of character for what I think is really important, focusing on kindness and bravery, and just setting them up to be the people that I hope they'll be, while also, of course, like getting their homework done, to an earlier question.
That's wonderful. I love that. We'll do a quick rapid fire to wrap up, and we'd love for you to show your book again at the end. So, firstly, a book that changed your life that you read.
Oh gosh, my favorite book as a kid was A Wrinkle in Time, and I don't know if it changed my life, but it certainly helped me feel that strong girls who loved their families and had a strong sense of kind of what was right and wrong and good and not so good could make a big difference in the world.
Yes. Let's see, a person you'd like to meet.
A person that I'd like to meet. Oh gosh. What a good question. I am sure there are many. I think I'm still a little bit trapped in like the COVID world of like, do we meet people? We're starting to meet people again. I don't know, Kanika. I'm just happy to see people at 3 dimensions.
Exactly. Yeah. Just give everyone a hug. It's just, it's so nice. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
Do I have a guilty pleasure? We cook and bake a lot in our family, and I do eat raw cookie dough, and I'm not proud of that, but I do.
That's great. I love that. What's your favorite mom hack?
Oh gosh, my favorite mom hack. It's probably like not that exciting, but when I don't make my kids lunches the night before, it feels like the day is just somehow going to be maybe insurmountable. So the lunches have to be made the night before.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. What would you say is your life purpose? I know this is
No, I mean, I think the most important part of my life is to be the best mom that I can be to Charlotte, Aiden, and Jasper. And I think that kind of in that vein, my purpose is to, as kind of cheesy and trite as it may sound, do whatever I can in all the ways that I can, for as long as God gives me on this earth, to leave it a better place for them and their generation than it is today. I really deeply chafe at kind of the narrative of like, oh, like, don't worry, the young people are going to save us. Because I think that just is like a get out of jail free card for those of us who are adults. Like, I want to do whatever I can so that my kids don't have to save me, because I think it's my job. It's my job to try to avoid them for having to save me or having to save themselves.
Right, right. Oh, lastly, what is your mantra?
Oh, goodness. I have quite a few, but definitely life is not about what happens to you. It's about what you do with what happens to you. And as simple as it sounds, I do find it quite helpful to always remember that tomorrow is indeed another day.
Oh, it's so profound and so, so true. I want to just share that You can purchase Chelsea's latest book,
Thank you.
The Big Kids Club, on Amazon. There it is. Hello, welcome to the Big Kids Club. And it's, of course, support your independent booksellers. And join me in wishing Chelsea's mom happy birthday to Hillary.
Thank you, Kanika. Thank you.
Oh, goodness, happy birthday. Enjoy the festivities. We are so thankful to you and are so proud of all that you've achieved. And, we're just really grateful to be in your orbit.
Oh gosh, well, Kanika, I'm so grateful to be in this company today, particularly given it is my mom's birthday. As I shared earlier, it feels just even more resonant and relevant. So thank you for having me. And Kanika, hope we get to be in conversation again soon.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, ladies, so much. Attendees, we're going to hop right into our next panel. Again, thank you so much for your time, gals. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye.